Welcome back to another live stream. My name is Scott Wilkinson, and I run the channel here, Piercing with Scott. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a bunch of different piercing problems and issues, and I answer as many of those questions as we can. And on the other side of the camera over here, we have Jared. So
hey,
say hi to Jared.
Glad to see you guys here.
All right. So I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but this last episode that we put out, I interviewed Elaine Angel. It was an amazing interview. It was totally worth checking out. She's one of the pioneers in the industry. So make sure you go check out that last one. It was really cool. Really proud of it. So.
All right. First things first, we have a question.
Sure.
Emily wants to know, can noses be dermal punched? So we see that your nose is really big. Did you punch that out? How did that go?
I actually did not dermal punch my nose or biopsy punch, whatever term you want to use. That's basically where you core out the tissue and you remove it and you go big right away. Some people do with cartilage because cartilage is really difficult to stretch, but mine personally was pierced in 8 and then stretched up from there. I do know lots of people who did biopsy punch or dermal punch their nose. I don't offer it. I'm not a body modification artist. I'm a body piercer, so I don't go that route, but it can be done.
How long did it take you to go from an 8 to, at what size are you at now?
7/16.
7/16. So
probably a good 9 or 10 years solid to get up to this size. It was real slow process. But the thing is if I took this out, it will shrink up quite a bit. It's still a permanent hole, but a biopsy punch, you're removing that core tissue and it won't close up the same way that this one would. So it's a very serious commitment.
So it technically can be done, but it's pretty serious. You're not sure you would.
Yep. Find somebody you trust on that one.
Absolutely. F wants to know if you have any suggestions for a piercing bump on a septum.
Yeah, a couple of different things. Number one, what kind of jewelry are you wearing? If you're wearing a seam ring, one where there's a little tiny gap in there, if that gap goes in there, that's going to cause a lot of irritation. Make sure there's no scratches, nicks, dings, or burrs on the jewelry. Sometimes if the jewelry's too tight and it's pinching in the bottom of the nose, that can cause a bump on there. But if it's a newer piercing, continue cleaning it. Maybe use some emu oil. But the thing is maybe check out your jewelry because it's probably the jewelry.
All right. Hello to Bat Dad Singo for coming in. Hello. And also hello to Caitlin Moore. She says, hi, body piercer and tattoo shop owner from Granite City, Denwin Art and Design. So glad you're here.
Yeah, glad you're here.
All right. Will Jones says, hi, Scott. One of my ears has the entire upper part filled with scar tissue. What should I do? It's all below the skin. I have a piercing in it that also has a scar tissue bump, front and back. So is that pretty common if you have?
I'm not sure what exactly this is, like cauliflower ear type deal.
So as an example, so say like a wrestler. So your whole ear is scarry. Is that something you would normally pierce?
I mean, I have pierced in the past. Generally try to minimize as much of the scarring as possible. My concern is did you get the piercing done and it just kept scarring and growing bigger and bigger? Because that's not necessarily normal. Now, I have done piercings before where there's large, harder tissue around the area for a while and it dissipates and goes back to normal. But if it's just a bunch of scar tissue, you can pierce scar tissue. It's just the thicker it is, the more tissue there is to heal. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, if it's because of the piercing or you want to pierce existing scar tissue.
Yeah, it sounds like both. It sounds like there was existing scar tissue and we have pierced it and it's resulted in more bumps. Is that to be expected?
I would suggest getting Mederma, some sort of scar tissue remover. Try to break down the scar tissue as much as you can before you get it pierced.
All right. We have a question from Fallon. Wants to know if guys can get their navel pierced. Or
100%.
Is there like a stigma, though? Do I have to worry about people thinking weird things about me or no?
Everyone has stigmas about everything. And we need to forget about those and do what you want to do to make you happy. I've had my navel pierced 3 times. I never really wore jewelry for a very long time, but I had it done. I know a lot of other piercers who've got it done. There are some people who might say, oh, you're going to be gay if you get it done, something of that caliber. But no, that means absolutely nothing, and people are just stupid sometimes. So if you want to get it done, get it done. It's a great piercing.
And I mean, just the fact that you've done it 3 times, there's a vote right there. So yeah, get it done if you want it. No stigma.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hidden anyway, so it's not like you're going to walk down the street and have people yelling at you. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Necessarily.
Yeah. So it's whatever you want to do, and it's all about the jewelry style you wear. Just make it your style. Do your thing.
All right. Great question. Up next, we have Ursula's Odds and Sods says, hi, Scott. I have 2 questions this week. First, I want to get my other nostril pierced, plus double high nostrils and a septum. What's the best order to do that?
When you say double high nostrils, I'm assuming you just want one on each side, normal and the septum.
Yes. And we already have one of the low nostrils.
One low nostril. I would say get the other low nostril done, and then get your high nostrils done at, after that nostril's healed up. High nostrils are a little bit more finicky. They're a little bit more sensitive. And once you're healed up enough where you feel comfortable with that, then go with your septum, because septum's probably going to be the easiest of all of them. But yeah, with the septum piercing, a lot of times we like to flip it up during the healing process. I like to anyways, because it doesn't really have any movement, which allows it to heal faster. But if you have a fresh nostril piercing next to it, it's kind of tough to flip it up. So heal the nostril first, move on to the high nostrils, and once you feel comfortable, then move on to the septum. That's the way I'd go about it.
All right.
Yeah.
We have actually a great question that I've never seen before, which is awesome. I plan on getting my nipples pierced in the future, and I know they have to be hard to pierce them, which is because you should explain that. But is it the same for changing jewelry? Is there any requirement that they be erect for jewelry changing?
No. Okay, what we're talking about here is when we're marking to get it clean, it needs to be more in the erect state. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be fully erect, but the thing is, nipples twist when they come out. Okay, so a lot of times I'll clean the area, and that's just enough to get the nipple erect enough. I put the dots on there. If someone spends a lot of time looking in the mirror, they'll be like, I don't know, it keeps looking more and more crooked as time goes on because the nipple gets flatter and flatter and starts changing angles. Now, once the piercing's in there and that tube of scar tissue is established, keeping the nipple out, it's stuck at that size. So changing it is not going to matter if the nipple's erect or not at all, because that tube of scar tissue is already established. So that's the main thing, is like you want the nipple erect so the piercings look straight. Because a lot of times if you pierce it when they're not, they get hard and then you have two crooked piercings.
Okay.
That's the tricky part about marking nipple piercings.
All right. So hopefully that answers your question, GRC Paris.
Great question.
Sarah wants to know how a piercer should correct a crooked bridge.
How a piercer should correct. I would say take the piercing out right away if it is crooked, so it doesn't scar as much. Make sure you take note which side was crooked. And generally what I will do is I'll have the person come back a week, maybe 2 weeks later, if it was just taken out right away. And then you can kind of still see a little bit of the scar tissue, but you'll look at it and go, okay, I know it needed to go just a 0.5 millimeter higher than this. So you're able to readjust and re-pierce it, but it needs to completely close, heal up as much as possible, and then you can go ahead and re-pierce it.
So I like that you actually take note of how it got crooked, because you obviously tried to get it straight the first time, and if it ended up a certain way, to adjust a little bit the second time.
Correct. It needs to either go further in, further out, or higher or lower. There's a couple different angles we need to look at here. So just take notes, remember what you're doing. And like I said, the sooner it comes out, the less scar tissue you have, so the sooner you're able to re-pierce it. If someone gets the piercing, they leave it in for a couple of weeks and they take it out, they have to leave it out for much longer before we can get it re-pierced, because you want that scar tissue to dissipate.
And Ursula has a second question, which I also like.
Sure.
When my ears are stretched enough to be large enough, is it safe to just stick a candy cane through them for some fun holiday photos? Do we have to worry about temporary hanging things in them, or that's not really a concern?
It's really not a concern. Yeah, because I remember way back in the day, I don't condone this whatsoever, but I was doing a piercing party, because this is back in the day before I actually started working in shops, and I wanted some attention and my ears were stretched 00. So I put padlocks in my ears, and I had the key locked onto my car keys, so I knew I wouldn't lose it. But then I lost the car keys. And I remember by the end of the night, walking around holding my ears, they hurt so bad. So be smart about it. But yeah, it's like a temporary little thing for a picture or something. Go for it. Just don't damage your ear. Don't put something sharp. Don't put knives in there to show out,
Right. Nothing too heavy. We learned from the lock story.
Yeah. So yeah, you're totally fine.
All right. So yeah, do that and then send us the fun pictures, please.
Yes.
Greetings from Texas from Rebecca. And we also have hello from Tim. Glad you guys could make it.
Hi, guys.
Ghost Winters wants to know, do nose bumps ever disappear, or can some actually become permanent? I got told there are a few different types, and I have a little one that comes and goes, usually quite quickly, and I'm not best sure how to tackle it. What do you think, Scott?
Okay. In my experience, the bumps that stay are the ones where, for instance, someone has a ring in there and they get a bump and they keep the ring in and the bump gets bigger and then they pop it and they're creating more scarring by picking and irritating that bump. Now, if you're able to get that bump to dissipate and start going down, a lot of times they go completely away. But if you keep picking at it, you're creating more scar tissue on top of scar tissue. And I think that's why the bumps stay. Now, if you say you have a little one that comes and goes, sometimes that happens during the healing process. But once it's gone, you probably won't ever deal with it again.
And could it be an issue of like maybe an irritant in their jewelry, or could there be a problem causing a bump to come and go, or is it just to be kind of expected at the beginning?
It's kind of expected in the beginning. I mean, there is issues. It's probably crusties more than anything. There's a possibility there's a scratch on your jewelry, which would cause the irritation, but I wouldn't imagine it would get better and then worse and better if it's always there.
Okay.
So I guess it's probably some sort of a thing where you catch a towel on it once in a while, a shirt, but nostrils are notorious for getting the bump. We don't like them. The less they get irritated, the less bumps we have. Once you hit several months, it's generally they're done.
All right. A couple more hellos. Ejay from Sweden and Ahana from Washington State.
Wow,
Washington State. Glad to see both of you.
Welcome.
An actual cat wants to know, is stainless steel is safe to wear 24/7 for years? Some say it doesn't stain. Some say it does. I'm super confused. I don't want to mess up my piercing because I love to keep the same jewelry in for years. So is that okay? Stainless steel still okay?
Stain? Okay. The whole premise of stainless steel, I think the way the question was worded there is it's not going to stain the skin. It's that the metal itself won't get corroded or stained. That's the whole premise of the stainless steel that you're talking about. So no, it's not going to stain the skin. And for years and years and years, we did piercings with surgical stainless steel. We didn't have the titanium like we do today. It wasn't as available. So, and we did piercings and wore that jewelry for so long, and I never had an issue. So yeah, you can technically wear it a long time. The issue with the stainless steel is there's a little amount of nickel in there, and the nickel is what people have allergies to. So if you have very strong allergies to metals, then you'd want to kind of stay away from some sort of stainless steel and go to the titanium. But yeah, technically you can wear it for years. It's not going to stain the skin, and hopefully that metal shouldn't stain or tarnish either.
Because yeah, we were at APP, and I feel like there's folks there that are still wearing steel jewelry,
100%,
just because they preferred it.
100%,
probably have been for decades.
Talked to a couple of piercers who were like, yeah, exactly. It's like the shine, you can get a higher polish on stainless steel. So there's some people who prefer the stainless for that reason.
Okay, so above titanium, you're saying it can be shinier if you get the polish on there.
It's a softer metal, and it's easier to get a better polish, more of a mirror polish as opposed to the titanium.
Very cool.
You can get pretty close, but I bet if we looked under a microscope, you would be able to see it
a little bit shinier.
I think. Now, if there's any metallurgists, correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but if there's any of you out there, I believe that's the case. Stainless steel can be polished to a better polish.
Absolutely. Lots of questions today. We're going to keep on rolling. Ray Pin says, my navel piercing is fairly new, but it doesn't hurt when I sleep on it. Am I still doing damage? Or if it doesn't hurt, is it okay to sleep on your belly?
Do your best not to. It's the same thing with a lot of ear piercings that people wear earbuds, stethoscopes, like, oh, it doesn't hurt. And then over time, the bump starts showing up. So it's easy to cause that bump. So be careful. Just because it's not doing damage now doesn't mean it won't show up in the future. So be careful.
Sam Spain with an excellent idea. Can we do a tutorial on how to change your septum piercing? I'm way too scared to try and lose the hole and have it close up if we miss, So can you teach us that, Scott?
Added to the list.
Absolutely.
We'll add that to the list, and we'll get that all real soon. That's a great idea. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right.
And it's one of those things where it's got to be more of a visual thing. I do have a septum piercing where I don't wear jewelry, and I can actually show you so we can actually teach how this is done, not just on a rubber nose. So
very cool.
See me change my septum jewelry, which I don't wear.
Excellent. Cavrian O'Connell says, hey, I love your vids. I got snake bites, and I've had my left for about 7 months and my right for about 2 months, and the right one keeps hurting randomly and won't finish healing. What should I do?
That long and it won't. Maybe check out your jewelry. Maybe either get a longer bar in there or a shorter bar, depending on what you need. Somewhere there's irritation. I'm sure you can tell where it is, whether it's on the inside or outside. If it's the outside, maybe change the style of bead or gem, because that could be causing the irritation. If the jewelry's too tight and it's just constantly pinching, it'll never work. Or if it's way too long and it's moving, it won't heal either. So finding the right size is probably what you need.
Laura says, hi, Scott. If I have a nose bump that won't go away after 6 months, and I think it's the angle of the piercing, Can I just take it out while the bump is still there, or will that like lock in the bump and cause it to stay?
No. If it's not going to heal up, you can take the piercing out. The bump will probably dissipate and go away right away. If it is at like normally we're trying to go perpendicular, which is like a 90-degree angle here. But if you go at a harsh angle through the cartilage, you create weak spots because there's weird angles and real open ones, and that's what can cause that bump to happen. And if it's pierced at that weird angle, the bump probably won't ever go away. So yeah, take it out, massage it, break down the scar tissue, and start over.
And so every piercing should be perpendicular exactly to what it's going through?
Perpendicular to the piercing as possible, or as to the skin. That's the number one problem I see with industrial piercings. People go at the angle they want it to look at, but it's not perpendicular through the cartilage. It's at weird angles, which almost inevitably causes bumps to happen. They're tricky piercings.
It's why you see so many bad industrials.
Yes.
Because you just want it so bad, you force it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or your piercer just takes the money and makes it happen.
Take the money and run.
All right. Next up from Josie Dale, I want to get a septum. Is there a piece of jewelry you're supposed to start with, or can you begin with any ring?
No, you can't start with anything. You can start with a lot of things. You can start with a septum retainer, which is just kind of like a little U where you would tuck it up and completely be invisible in your nose. You can start with a circular barbell, which is like the bowl ring with the two beads on the bottom there. I prefer those because we can adjust them and have them flipped up inside the nose. Therefore, it can't move around. It acts like a retainer and you can show it off. Or you can start with a captive bead ring, which is a ring with a single bead on there. I'm not a big fan of these ones because the jewelry is going to rotate. Generally, the weight of the bead causes movement, and you're pulling crusties through fresh tissue. That's a mucous membrane. It's going to stay irritated and take a longer healing process. So I generally prefer the circular barbells. I don't ever condone getting pierced with clickers or seam rings, especially seam rings where the little gap, if that goes in the middle, the skin closes up around it, and then you have to break it free, you're going to have big bumps and nothing but problems.
All right. So take your time, be patient, switch to that clicker later.
Correct.
All right. Shriyanth Sivam says, hi, Scott. How do I know if my anatomy is right for a septum piercing? How do I check? So say something and make us all put our fingers in our nose, Scott.
That's exactly what went through my head. Like right now, we're going to have 100 people sticking their fingers in their nose. Okay. If you take your pinkies and you put them in your nose, you're going to feel real thick, and you go up a little tiny bit and then towards the front, and your fingers will almost be touching. Okay. So there's that thin, sweet mucous membrane is where we're going for. Some people it's a little higher up, some people it's a little lower, but I mean, you're going to feel that ledge go in and then towards the tip of the nose. That's where we're going. Sometimes, like I said, when we actually put the clamps in there or the receiving tubes, we have to separate tissue because it's such a tight area. Other people, it's just like screaming for like 2 or 3 piercings.
Interesting.
I'm just kidding about the 2 or 3. I've never done 3. I've done 2 before, but
I've seen stacked rings in a big septum.
That's different. That's through one hole. That's not multiple piercings in a small area.
So many distinctions.
I know.
Mugglebomb says, hi, Scott.
Hi.
I am about to stretch my ears. I just got both lobes pierced 5 weeks ago. What to go for next? Thought about a septum or a snake bites.
All right. Well, 5 weeks old. It's a little early to be stretching. Technically, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the ears to fully heal. So I wouldn't even think about stretching until you hit that 2-month mark. Then when you're kind of pulling down on your ears, if you can almost see light go through it, then you're ready to go up to the next size. Remember, a proper stretch doesn't hurt. And the other thing was, what it was, snake bite? What's next?
Septum or snake bites. What do you think pairs well with some stretched ears?
Both pair very, very well. Honestly, I would need to see your face to be able to tell you what I honestly think would look best.
But they're both fantastic piercings.
They're both great piercings. Yeah, they're both balanced, which is something I like. Snake bites, one on each side. Septum right in the middle of the nose. I mean, you get all 3.
Rebecca B wants to know if, due to movement in the area, would a couple of dermals above the navel piercing reject out? Or do you think above the navel is an okay spot for a couple dermals?
Right now, with the trend of a slightly higher waisted pants, I would be nervous about that. That's my number one concern. Now, if you don't wear high waisted pants, clothes that rub right up against it, think about all the countertops you're kind of leaning up against. If things are hitting or bumping and irritating, it won't heal for you. But because of the movement, like you still could heal it. Should be able to heal it just fine. It's just whether it's being hit and rubbed up against by the clothes and general lifestyle.
So as long as you leave it alone, it's not terrible.
Yes.
All right. Diabolical Crush says, hi, Scott and Jared.
Hi.
Love your Q&As. Many greetings from Germany.
Well, thank you. It's good to have you here.
All right. Will says, I had a piercing before and it was so irritated that I took it out and it stayed in that swollen state. I'm hoping there's a way to put my ear back to before. Also, does Mederma work below the skin? So if your scar tissue is, say, like subdermal, is the Mederma still going to get in there and do anything?
It does. It really absorbs all the way in there. My earlobes were cut off and then burned shut. So my ears had a lot of thick, hard scar tissue. I could barely squeeze my ears. And after using that Mederma after a week, it almost felt like normal tissue again.
Okay.
It was incredible. So it penetrates and does break down all that scar tissue. I wish I understood it better, but it's amazing stuff.
And in terms of the first part of the question, if we had a piercing, it acted up, we took it out, and that the area is still swollen, like, is it going to be eventually go back to normal? We don't have a date, but how long should we expect before it would go back to normal?
I mean, if it's really irritated, it could stay swollen for like another, I would say 3 to 5 days on average. It could be longer. Maybe your body's looking at that beginning of that fistula or that tube of scar tissue. Maybe there was a foreign object in there that is trying to expel out. I don't really know why. And what piercing are we talking about?
We are talking about, it doesn't say. So like, for example, you've showed me pictures of where like you pierce someone's Dath and then you compare the pictures and the one is way bigger than the other.
Yeah.
So if I took that out, all that swelling is going to go away in 3 days, you're saying? Like, even if it was like nasty swollen?
That you're right. Cartilage might take a little bit longer. I don't exactly know. But generally, when you take piercings out, bumps, swelling, and most things like that are going to go away fairly quick. Okay. Cartilage might stay a little extra swollen for a little longer, but
it'll go back to normal eventually, though. It's not really a concern.
Yes.
Excellent. So hopefully that helps, Will. Sioki Bloom says, hello and happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you.
I've been wondering if it's normal for nipple piercings to crust very often, even though they've been pierced for over a year now.
Absolutely. That's the weird thing about nipple piercings is they're going to seem healed generally between like the 4 and 6 month range, but crusties happen for a year to 2 years is what I tell all my clients. It's going to seem healed, but those crusties just happen for a long time. For me, I think it was around the 2-year mark when mine stopped getting most of the crusties. I mean, every once in a while you get a little tiny bit here and there. And I've had mine for 20 plus years now.
And so it's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong.
No, not at all.
Like
not at all. It's the glands, you have the milk ducts there. There's more different things going on. It's a cluster of nerves, and it's just things need to kind of come out. I mean, even sometimes when I put clamps on guys' nipples, you can almost see a clear fluid come out. So I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, like the Meet the Fockers. Have you seen that movie? Like it was like, I have nipples. Can you milk me? And it's like, technically, yes. I was kind of freaked out the first time it happened, but it does happen.
It's just normal. It just makes sense. It's a glandular area. There's going to be more wetness that's going to dry.
Because of that, you don't have ears don't just secrete kind of wax, but I don't know. Anyways, yes, they crust.
Carmen Servaki says, hi, Scott. I got both of my ears pierced at 4 gauge 2 months ago. How long does it normally take for the crusties to stop forming on ears?
Generally a couple months. A month and a half to 2 months, but like mine are several months now and I still get a little bit of crusties, but I also know that I sleep on them real hard and sometimes that twisting of the ring is enough to create little crusties for the next day. So
Mark Teven wants to know, how do I get silicone tunnels in my nostrils? They're at a size 4 gauge and I can't get the silicone in. Is there concerns about stretching with silicone?
4 gauge in your nostrils? Awesome. I would say maybe look into the Chaos silicone plugs. There's generic plugs. I'm not saying they're generic, but the Chaos ones, Kaos, are real soft and squishy. So you're going to be able to get it in there. And some of the generic ones from other companies that don't really have name brands, they're hard. They're still silicone and they're comfortable, but they're not the squishy. So you can't it's like trying to put a double flare stone through cartilage. It's not an easy thing to do. So maybe change up to the Chaos plugs, number one. And number two, I hope you're not trying to stretch with them. If you're trying to stretch with silicone, it's a terrible idea. It's going to grab a hold. It's going to be bad. Don't stretch with silicone.
Oh, right. Simple facts.
got the sense that it's really bad. Don't stretch.
Sounds like he's played with that and come on. BB Fan says, "Hi, Scott.
Hi.
What is the rarity of getting a septum piercing and it going right through the cartilage? So how often does that happen? And is that like a piercer error when that does happen?"
I'd say it's a piercer error. Septums are one of the most difficult of all piercings to do. And even sometimes I will hit a little bit of cartilage in there, but I go in there and I feel with my fingers, I get the receiving tube, the back end of the needle. I kind of poke around till I feel and I know it's the right spot. And that's when I go. But like I said, everyone has a different size sweet spot. Sometimes it's a little smaller. Sometimes it's a large sweet area where it's easy to hit. If you go to a piercer who doesn't know what they're doing and they just know that you pierce the nose, there's a really, really, really good chance, like 99% chance, they're going to hit that cartilage for you.
So if we had to throw a number on it, if I just get a random piercing at a random shop, what percentage of the time is it going through my cartilage?
I can't answer that one.
Can't answer that?
I wish I could.
Is it half the time? Is it a quarter of the time? I hate saying this, but like here in Vegas, there's a lot of piercers who really don't know what they're doing. There's some good ones, but there's a majority of them really don't know. And then when I was in Minneapolis, every shop that I knew all the piercers, and the odds of getting a better piercing 15 years ago in Minneapolis is better there than it is here. Just because of the quality piercers, the piercers communicated. The scene
it's different. It's just different from every city to city. You know, some piercers share and talk to each other. Sometimes it's just a bunch of tattoo artists who pick up the piercing needle. I
guess what we're trying to get a sense of is it super rare? Is it like 2% of the time? Or is it more like it happens, it's 20% of the time?
If you do your research, it takes that percentage out of it. Go to the top shop. Go to the place where it has the highest reviews, people talk the highest about. Don't go to the cheapest place. The cheapest place, you're going to get the cartilage.
Okay. Go to a reputable person, though, and they're not going to hit the cartilage.
If you're straight up gambling, it's pretty high chance you're going to get cartilage. If you do a little bit of research, it drops dramatically.
All right. So hopefully that answers your question, BB Fan. Research. It really depends on the piercer themselves, but a good piercer should be able to miss that cartilage basically every time.
Yeah.
Matthew says, "Can I ever close my stretched septum?"
I hate saying this, but you gotta, number one, not wear jewelry through it, or number two, really irritate it.
Okay.
I'm not condoning this. I mean, no one can see it anyways. Maybe you have a septum that was so big that it needs to, then you might need to surgically see if you could do something. But if you just had like a 4 gauge or a 2 gauge in there, I don't know. I'm wearing a 2 gauge through mine and I don't wear any jewelry. I can fit a 4 gauge in there right now if I wanted to.
And it just, you can't tell.
You can't tell
when you're not wearing jewelry.
You can't tell. I mean, my nose gets a little more flat because I've kind of ruined the integrity of the tip of my nose. And that happens. But, otherwise, like I said, if you stretched it and you just like overstretched it and ripped, then it's probably going to close up on you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah. It doesn't really need to be closed though, because no one can see it unless they're looking up your nose.
Maybe it is. Maybe they have the nose where it's the septum comes from and you can actually see the piercing hole. Then I don't really know.
Then it'd be harder to close at that size.
Yeah. But don't wear jewelry ever because that's the only way you keep it open.
Dash says, "Hey Scott, I got my nose piercing around October of 2020. Changed it to a hoop early. Stupid, I know. I got a stud about 7 months ago and the piercing feels fine. Would it be okay to try that ring again? Is it time now?" 7 months after problems.
Okay. If the bump has been gone for a couple months, you're probably fine to go back to the hoop. Make sure it's the right size hoop. Too small of a hoop will cause problems, as is too big of a hoop will also cause problems. Have it fit properly and you should be fine.
And what's the rule for the fit of a ring? How would we know?
Should almost be snug, maybe hanging down just a hair. But I mean, if it's pushing up on your nose, you can see any white tissue distorting like where the piercing hole is, you're going to have problems. And if the ring's just ginormous and moving, if you're fully healed, you could probably technically wear it. It's more of a problem if it's too small than too big.
All right. Luna de Blue says, "Hi, Scott. Thanks for your advice for emu oil. It has helped me my grumpy flat piercing that we had 10 weeks ago, and the comment about using a disposable lip applicator to put on the oil." So I remember when someone said that. That's actually a really good plan.
It works really, really well.
So apparently that's working for Luna. So that's good to hear.
I love emu oil. It does work amazing. I'm glad it worked for you, and I'm glad we're able to figure that out.
Leaf says, "I really want angel fangs, but I also want a bridge piercing. And I have a left eyebrow and a septum and a nose ring. What do you think? What should I get?" I guess we're trying to choose between angel fangs and a bridge.
Say that again. What piercings do we have?
Okay, we have a left eyebrow and a septum and a right nose. Angel fangs or bridge? Snap decision.
Bridge.
Do it, Leaf. Next up, Whiffist says, "Hey, Scott, I have a Conch to Conch industrial that's 6 months into the healing process, and I'm wondering if I could get my earlobes pierced at an 8 gauge, or do you think that's too much to heal at once with the ongoing industrial?"
Sometimes for Conch to Conch industrials, we put an oversized bar. So sometimes that bar is a little extra long, and if it's rubbing back to where it's going to be touching your piercing, then it would be causing a problem. If your piercing seems pretty well healed up, I say go for it. But I think you might understand what I'm saying. Like if the bars,
you don't want them to interfere with each other.
I don't want them touching. So if your piercing's healed up enough and you've downsized to a shorter bar, or it's not going to get in the way, then I say go for it.
All right. So as long as they're not touching, cool. Lady Lioness says, "Where can I send my face pic so I can have your opinion about the libretto, the snake bites?" Luckily, we do a show about that.
We do. That is called What Should I Get Pierced? We are changing the format. I'm glad you brought this up because later today, little heads up here, we're going to be doing another live stream. We're going to be doing a live stream, What Should I Get Pierced? That's where people send in their pictures to piercingwithscott@gmail.com.
Now, we won't be doing pictures that people send in today. We're going to be going to the backlog, and we're doing them in the order we got them.
Correct. So we're trying to get through these faster. We still have a lot of pictures to get through, but hopefully this live stream is just going to be put up, and then we're going to be able to break it down. It's only going to be up for the live stream. We're not going to rebroadcast it.
And we're going to cut it up. Basically, we're letting you guys in on the process of us making these. Right. Let you hang out. You can make some suggestions or ask some questions, make it a little more interactive and fun.
Sorry I didn't describe that well enough, but I knew what I meant.
It's a team, man.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
It is. But send pictures to piercingwithscott@gmail.com. Make sure it's a clear, bright picture of your face and of your ear. Okay.
And I got to make the thumbnail, so don't cut off the top of your head. It makes it really hard to make the thumbnail.
For real. He's like, oh man, I have nothing to work with here.
All right. So, Lady Lioness, send it in. It's piercingwithscott@gmail.com. Antra Blake says, "What are the most common causes of bumps on a healed lobe piercing?"
I'm sorry. What is
bumps on a healed lobe? What do you think would cause that? What's the most common cause?
Probably wearing really thin wires in the weight, causing irritation, which could cause the slit, which could also cause bumps. Jewelry that's pinching too tight. A lot of people like to put their backs on really, really tight, and if it's pinching too much, that could cause bumps. O-rings, if you have plugs in there, those can cause pinching. I think is the key issue for bumps on earlobes.
All right. Yep. Dagmar Beaky says, "Scott's such a sweetheart."
Oh, thank you.
Zach V was trying to clean his tongue piercing with peroxide, but accidentally drank some. Said it was a bad time. Do we advocate the cleaning of piercings with peroxide?
Zach. Zach is a friend of our shop, and he likes to make comments like this once in a while. So hi, Zach. And should I tell him the story? God, this is terrible.
What story? Is there a story?
The peroxide story?
Do you have a peroxide story?
I have a peroxide story.
All right.
And that's what he's bringing up, but I think he wants me to bring it up here. So quick story time. So the other day I was, don't ask me why, but I had a little cup of peroxide next to my sink, and I got up to go to the bathroom, and I decided I was really thirsty. I'm like, oh, a cup of water. So I just chugged a whole bunch of hydrogen peroxide. Thought I was going to die. I looked up on the internet, found out that some people have died, but that's from the food grade. And the one that I have is medical grade, so it's way less. Drank a bunch of water, and I was okay. So drinking peroxide won't kill you. Doesn't make you feel very good.
So don't do it.
Don't drink peroxide. I highly suggest dump out that peroxide.
And
bad idea.
Cleaning a tear tongue piercing with it?
It's really funny you bring that up because back in the day, we used to have we'd suggest our clients go get glyoxide, which is an oral hydrogen peroxide to clean their tongue piercings, where you put a couple drops on the top of your tongue piercing. And that just kind of disappeared. We never used it anymore. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Glyoxide, Glyoxide. But yeah, don't use peroxide. Hi, Zach.
Next up, we have Necro Dudson says, "Cleaning with salt water versus Bactine wound care. What do you advise for lobes?"
Salt water is the better option. The best option is using a wound wash spray, which is a pre-mixed sterile saline solution. That's what you're trying to do with your salt water. So If you can just buy the sterile saline solution, use that. Now, Bactine. If you read the bottle, I'm pretty darn sure it says not made for puncture wounds right on that bottle. So stay away from the Bactine.
Stay away.
Because that's what piercings are. They are puncture wounds. Yeah.
And glyoxide is still a real product sold everywhere where products are sold. It's an oral cleanser.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know why we stopped using that. And I don't even know what it did.
If it's related to peroxide, it's probably bad because I've actually heard that peroxide is no longer recommended even for wound cleaning.
Yeah.
It's too abrasive. It actually does more damage to the wound than cleaning it, you know, so it actually lengthens the healing time.
It's funny because I used to tell clients if they want a wound to close using peroxide, it kind of eats the scar tissue and leaves it in a raw state and allows it to close faster.
Most likely
which
true.
Probably does.
Yes.
Which is about the only use I can think of for it. But in general, stay away from it.
So don't use that Bactine necro dudes and just use the saline solution.
Wound wash spray.
Wound wash spray, which is just salt water in a spray can. Joannis Freeze says, hi, can I get a vertical labret even though my lips are on the smaller side? Love from Germany.
My concern here is that if you have a very flat lip, there's a good chance it could reject out for vertical labret. Now, if you pierce a little deeper in, so when you close your mouth, the top lip might close on that bead, and you probably put like a half dome or a disc on top, you might be able to get away with it there. But that's my concern is if you do this, there's a chance of rejection, and that would leave a nasty looking scar.
Suzanne Haynes says, love your site. Just got my nose pierced in January. I know it's still healing, but my nose gets sore when I change studs. Is that normal? And should she be changing studs?
January should be enough time. It just depends on when you started changing your studs and what you're changing them to. Now, the only jewelry I really condone wearing as far as studs go are going to be nostril screws or the threadless style jewelry. Threadless is where it has the little push pin. Now, there's another style up there called a nose bone. A nose bone, can we go to the drawing here?
To the drawing board.
So if you had like a little gem across the top up here, see, it's all sparkly. Woo. And then a lot of times there's going to be a little pin with a little small bead on the bottom.
Unremovable, right? That's built into it.
Unremovable. So you just push, and that bead kind of holds it in by pressure. Now, if you have a labret post where it has a disc and the post coming up, and then there's a hole in the top like so, and then the gem itself, like so, will have a small pin and a bend on it. And that little bend, you can push into the labret. That's what I'm talking about by threadless style of jewelry. And then the last style is the nostril screw, where it has a little corkscrew style twist on the inside. So a lot of people put jewelry in and try to leave it in for a week, maybe 2 weeks at a time before change it out. If you do it on a daily basis, almost any piercing can get irritated. So that's my advice there.
Agnes has an irritation bump next to a navel piercing. What is your recommendation for that? Is it different than a nose?
Watch the clothes you're wearing, because if your pants are rubbing up against it all day long, if you sit down and the pants come right up against the belly, that's what's causing that bump. Otherwise, if the jewelry's too short, or if you have a lot of prongs and things sticking out, poking it, that could cause the irritation as well. But it's probably the pants.
Elisette says, Scott for the win. Rebecca B says, hey, Scott, you've talked before about how you've gotten your eyebrow and Madison piercings several times. Which piercing have you gotten redone the most times? Why? And was it worth it?
Piercing. Okay. Now, if I was to, that's a really great question. I would say I've had my eyebrow pierced the most and redone. It doesn't hurt. Most of mine did reject out, and I just don't scar, so I just keep getting redone.
Now, by reject out, you mean reject completely out, or you mean start to move and you pull them?
They start to move, they come out, where it gets half the tissue, and you can see almost all the bar. I'll just take it out, let it heal up, pierce at a different angle, different area. So that's probably the area I had the jewelry in the most. The area I've had pierced the most is going to be my Madison or my throat. Technically, I've had it like 4 or 5 times with jewelry. And that's just down the center here. But I've had it play pierced many, many a times for piercing conventions, like tattoo conventions, trying to get attention, people to my piercing booth for show. It's a fun area to have pierced, and it's kind of shocking. So
define play piercing for us. What's that mean?
That is basically piercings are typically done with a hypodermic needle, and they used to cut the hub off the end, the little plastic part that would go into the syringe. So a lot of times people will order just the actual needles itself with the hub on there, and you can actually do the piercings, but you can't pull it all the way through to transfer jewelry. But you can leave those colored hubs on there to actually do piercings and design. Can you pull up a picture to show what clay piercings are? And sometimes they'll have like light blue, pink, yellow, different plastic hubs on there. And people do like a full back piercings, maybe a couple hundred piercings, and do designs with it. So with that, I've had my throat pierced a bunch with blade needles. I've had it done 4 times normally. Otherwise, my eyebrows have been pierced at least a dozen times on each side with the jewelry.
So we're basically talking about like piercings that you're not intending to actually wear jewelry in. This is kind of just about the experience of the piercing, and then you take it out.
Yes. So all these are done in one sitting. Obviously, those are sharp points on the ends of those needles, and therefore you can't move around. But you do a photo shoot, something that's just kind of fun, and you move on. So as you see, like, wow, that was a lot of raised scar tissue.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun question. Thank you.
Next up, Ben B says, when can I change my double forward helix, and what jewelry do you suggest? I've had the piercing since December 2021.
I like to stick with studs. The double forward helix is kind of the front area right up in here. Now, if the swelling is completely down and you have longer bars, the first suggestion I'm going to have is going to be to downsize to short, comfortable bars. That will stop any extra irritation and finish off the healing process. As far as like doing jewelry, there's millions of options as far as the different tops go. I'm assuming you have threadless in there, so like a couple nice gold pieces, something that sits flat against the ear, looks amazing. I'm a bigger fan of the bezel than I am of the prong set gems in that area. They're the ones that sit a little bit more flat.
All right.
Yep.
Binky Yo says, hello here, Marja from the Netherlands.
Hello.
So, a fan from the Netherlands. We're glad that you're here. Laura Petit says, when doing a nose piercing, how do you prevent piercing through the septum? Is the angle downward? So are you aiming like down to try to not hit the septum, or what's the story there?
You need to go perpendicular to the tissue. Now, let's go back to the drawing board here. Basically, this is a receiving tube, not a needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this tube with this 45-degree angle right here on the inside. Okay, now go back to my face. So once I put the receiving tube on the inside, I'm going to pierce into the tube, and it's going to hit that glass wall and kind of follow down. So that way I'm going exactly perpendicular 90-degree angle to the tissue so it doesn't cause that bump. If you pierce like this, people are not going to be happy, because if they put a ring in there, most of the ring is on the outside of the nose, not half inside, half outside. That's why you want it perpendicular.
So it's basically it's a glass or a metal tube, and you're catching the needle tip with it.
Correct.
Is that common? Is that used for a lot of piercings?
That receiving tube is generally a little bit bigger for a nostril piercing. There's different sizes. There's different areas you can do where they're flat. Sometimes they have the 45-degree angle on there.
But it's a common tool.
It's a real common tool. Some piercers will clamp it, and then you can kind of pull the nose out and go perpendicular. I don't like distorting the tissue as much as possible, so I'm not a fan of that one, but it can work. Some piercers will freehand, where they can pierce and they choke up on the needle and it stops before they get to that part, and then they re-angle. I'm a bigger fan of the receiving tube.
Elizette has a question. We want to try to, it's something you could talk about forever, but we want to try to keep it quick because we have a ton of questions today. But she wants to know, what's your journey, Scott? How did you get into piercings?
The real quick story is I was going to college for electronics, for fixing musical equipment like keyboards and amplifiers. One of my roommates came back from vacation from Hawaii, and he had his tongue pierced. And this was in late 93, early 94. I said you couldn't do that. A week later, I was in the tattoo shop getting my tongue pierced, and the addiction began. 6 months later, my regular piercer, because I had multiple piercings at that time, said, hey, I'm moving out of state. Whatever you need to get pierced, because I'm leaving in a couple weeks. I was like, hey, can you just teach me to pierce so I can pierce myself. Sure. Showed up the next day. A couple days later, I had a really crappy apprenticeship, and I was a piercer and had to seek out extra knowledge past that. I believe I have story time on how I became a piercer, so go check it out. But that's the real quick gist of how I got into piercing.
And even though that's how you started, did you end up that it was about piercing yourself? You know what I mean? Like it seemed like that was your idea at the beginning, but is that really realistic for a person to take an apprenticeship and then pierce themselves, or not really?
I mean, it seemed like it at the time, but getting pierced is something I love. It's my pampering. Like instead of going to get nails or hair done or things like that, I love getting pierced and it's my time. So I would rather go and experience having it done. I've pierced myself. It's not as easy. It's slower. They come out crooked. It's just not what I want. Once I got this apprenticeship, I started doing piercing parties, which I don't condone, but I didn't know any better at the time. And I started paying all my bills, paying for college. I was loving what I was doing. I got to make people happy, and it just happened. It was so organic. It fell into my lap. I know like people seek out so hard trying to get an apprenticeship, and it's just so funny because back in the day, it wasn't a thing. And it's just like, hey, here's this if you want it. And I just said yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Times they are changing.
Yes.
Sebastian Lee says, hey, is it possible to get a horizontal eyebrow piercing through/inside the eyebrow itself as opposed to above or below it? So in the hair.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Sure. Absolutely. I don't see any reason why not. Just to like make sure you have enough, the gem's big enough to where you can see it through the hair.
Okay. It wouldn't just get lost in the eyebrow.
Yeah, totally fine.
All right. Mijukazar says, I have a nipple piercing that's a little crooked. Can it be redone? I'm afraid it's going to look weird with the old hole. I've had the piercing for 3 years now.
Yeah. You can take the piercing out, use Mederma or some sort of scar tissue remover, massage it and break down the scar tissue as much as you can. Take note how it was crooked and then have the piercer just adjust accordingly. But I would say leave it out at least probably a month, maybe even a couple months to break down that scar tissue as much as you can to make it look as normal as possible.
Ethical Juan wants to know what's the best method of doing a dermal piercing, a needle or a dermal punch. So what do you use? Or it's not legal in the state anymore, right?
It's not legal in the state anymore. It's tomato. I don't know what the best method is. A lot of piercers swear by the needle because it's faster and you kind of create the pocket and it just drops right in. Some people like the biopsy punch where you remove tissue and you separate the tissue underneath where it's going to sit flatter.
There are probably people concerned about the legality because there are places where you can't legally use an O needle,
correct,
right?
Because exactly. It's O needle / biopsy punch. Removing tissue without, yeah.
So
it's a questionable. I back in the day preferred the biopsy punch, but I did a lot with the needle as well because I had to. They both work.
All right, not a huge difference, Juan. Yeah. Sam says, externally threaded jewelry really that bad? There aren't any cute internally threaded septum jewelry, only externally threaded jewelry. I heard they're unsafe, but it can't be that bad, right?
Yeah, it can. Yeah. Files. Like if you can imagine a rasp or a wood file, what is that going to do to a piece of wood when you're rubbing it back and forth? It's just going to erode and kind of create scars. That's what externally threaded is you have a file on the end of your piece of jewelry. Each time you take it out, you have scar tissue in there. It's just ripping and kind of tearing, creating more and more scarring as you go. With that it's not as good. It's not near as good as the internally threaded. So, and that's the main reason. I mean, like when you do piercings, if you're using cannula needles, the external goes inside, but when you're done and you heal it, you have to still pull it back through. And why wouldn't you want the smoothest possible surface on there as possible? Right. We're all seeking out that mirror polish, but the end doesn't have to have any, and it can be as barbed as it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. But I mean, I also see where people are saying, like, if I'm not doing it that often, what damage am I really causing? Like, would it cause a bump potentially? Is that what we're afraid of? Is that it would be fine a few times, but one of those times you're going to make little cuts in there and end up with a bump?
Correct. Okay. It's just, I think it's better overall. There's also drop down threading where the threading kind of goes in, so it supposedly doesn't touch as much. But there is a lot of options for internally threaded. You just got to seek it out. And sometimes you're not going to find cheap plastic stuff on internally threaded because they're looking for more quality jewelry, and plastic's not a safe thing to wear.
All right. So that's why sometimes cute and safe might not be exactly the
that's
same.
Why you're going to find like the plastic bead stuff is all externally threaded because we don't
really use it
internally threaded to pierce with. You can't legally pierce with that anyways.
Sophia says, hi from Missouri. My piercer
Hi.
pierced my conch and put in a horseshoe bar. Should I get it changed to a stud? It's been irritated.
I would. The thing is if you sleep on this side, that big ring is just twisting and contorting, and it's going to hurt. It's going to take 6 months minimum to possibly closer to a year. If you change to the stud, generally I tell people 4 to 6 months and you're pretty well healed up. So it's worth changing.
All right. Eric is beginning a stretching journey.
Woo-hoo.
Has had the ears pierced for 4 years, 20 gauge with a gun, but just started stretching 6 days ago. Put a 14 gauge in and it didn't hurt at all. Felt good. When can we stretch to the 12?
During the early stages of stretching like this, you don't know where your ear really even is. So if you put a 14 gauge in and it wasn't even tight and it didn't hurt, you might be able to go to the 12 gauge. Sometimes when we wear earrings, the heavier stuff does stretch it out naturally. But once you get to the point where your earrings are tight, then you want to give it a month and a half to 2 months between each one size you stretch.
Binky asks, when I clean my piercing, can I move the piercing up and down? Some say don't touch it at all and only use the spray. Is it okay to move it around?
I don't like moving jewelry around because if you don't get all the crusties off there, you're basically pulling them inside and it's scratching and irritating. The premise of the spray is to soften crusties up and not irritate the tissue. I think the reason they say to spin and move jewelry is from the piercing guns, which are generally at the mall. If you don't spin or rotate them, the skin grows over the top. If you got pierced professionally, you have enough room for that swelling.
Kelly has a question. Has recently gotten a nose piercing and the pain brings tears to my eyes every time I knock it. And in case you think that it's just like an inexperienced thing, Kelly has also had a tragus and labret done before and they were fine. So is it just the nose? Is it extra painful or?
Well, of course, if you bump your nose and you have a fresh tragus, it's not going to hurt your tragus.
This guy. You should be a comedian instead of a piercer.
Okay. Basically, nostrils are really sensitive. They get a lot of crusties because it's that mucous membrane on the inside. Tragus doesn't get as much. It's more dry, so it's easier to pull the crusties to the inside. I think that's what happens when you bump it. You get a crusty pulled inside. That's what's hurting. It's not necessarily the bumping of the nose, but it's the crusties being forced inside. So that's probably the reason why. And if I could recommend not bumping your nose.
Okay, it's tough though, but
I know
we don't
really
do it
tough.
on purpose.
The nicer you are to your nose for the next month, the sooner it's going to be healed up. If you keep bumping it like this, it could be several months of healing process. If you're really gentle for a month, you're generally done after about a month.
But like every time you hit it, you're kind of resetting the clock.
Correct.
Oh, right.
Be careful.
Foggy has a 1-month-old nose and lip piercing, and the longer bars are kind of bothering them. But I've heard mixed info. Can I downsize them, or do I have to wait until they're fully healed? And this is a nose and a lip.
I personally think you should go downsize them. 1 month is when I tell people they need to start downsizing, especially for oral piercings. If you leave the longer bar in there, because I'm pretty sure that the swelling's gone, and if you bite down on there, you're going to chip and damage your teeth. So it's more important that you put that shorter bar in there to not cause more damage. For the nostril, if it's a nostril screw, have it readjusted, because if it's moving around, especially with that extra bar on the inside, it will cause extra irritation. If it's a threadless piece, you don't necessarily have to have a shorter bar, but if it's bothering you, then I'd say do it. You're totally safe to do it.
All right. JL has a question. I got my ears pierced at a mall with a gun, but I want to wear proper titanium jewelry. What size should I look for?
If you're fully healed up, you could easily wear an 18 gauge threadless piece of jewelry. That's going to come in titanium. You're going to have a bunch of options. That's what I would suggest you go with. Now, if you go with a threadless piece of titanium like that, you don't have to buy the back each time. You can buy just different tops. If you go to piercing shops, we generally sell the tops alone, and there's a lot of different options.
So once you have that back, you can have a bunch of different options.
And, if you want to start the stretching process, you can go slightly bigger. If you've had your ears pierced for years and years, sometimes you might even be able to get a 16 or even a 14 gauge if you wanted that thicker post in there, which can be more comfortable.
So a good place to start would be 18?
18 gauge is probably what I think would work best.
All right. Butter Spice says, hi, Scott.
Hi.
Hope you guys are having a good day.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
It's pretty good. Thank you. Hope you are too.
I was wondering if there's an alternative to black O-rings, because I think my gauged lobes are having a reaction to them.
awesome question. Okay. Now, O-rings, black ones are generally latex based, but not all of the time. There's a newer line of O-rings out there that are silicone based, and that's what you're looking for. So if you can find some colored silicone O-rings, like even the blue, clear, pink, whatever, those ones are going to be safe to wear. Now, they do make silicone ones in black as well, but I don't think you can really tell, or unless it's labeled really well. So yes, they do make them. This is a real issue. Like when people sign my release forms here, it says like, oh, I'm letting you know I'm allergic to latex. That's the only latex I use in my shop. And I don't even think all of them are necessarily latex based. But when I get plugs and I'm stretching someone with them, I don't necessarily know 100% if it's silicone or latex. That's why I ask them. And if they say they're not sure or they have a latex allergy, I always go with the clear ones. I just change them out.
That way, because you know the clear one.
I know for sure clear is not latex based. So.
All right. Yep. So you're looking for silicone rings, butter spice?
Yes, yes. Oh, one more thing. If you're going to the silicone rings, and what they say they had a 4 gauge, something like that, buy like 6 gauge silicone O-rings for your 4 gauge. The silicone are definitely more stretchy and loose than the latex ones. The latex grip better, so you got to buy one size smaller to make sure it's on there really tight so you don't lose them.
All right. Good advice.
Added tip.
Amazing 8 says, do you know anything about piercings and nail biting? I've heard some people were able to stop during the swelling period on an oral piercing, but I worry about damage because in case it's more severe. So I guess the idea is if we have a lip piercing and we bite our nails that we're constantly messing with the piercing.
Kind of. Yeah, try to keep your fingers off the piercing. I mean, that's a good, I don't know.
It's tough to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the mouth is a dirty area. We're putting food in there all day long, drinks, so forth. So, and it's never going to be fully sterile. But in general, you're touching things with your all day. So that's
it'd probably be a deterrent, though. Also, because your lip is swollen and it hurts, that might be a reminder not to bite your nails.
Tougher to do it. So,
you know, I mean, you just when you first touch, you'd be like, oh, I'm reminded not to. So
maybe try it that week. Get some of that bitter stuff you put on your nails so you know every time you do it. It's not going to stop you from doing it, but you're also going to say, I can't do it because of my lips. So if you can postpone it, that's the best bet. Oh. And if you can stick it out for that week and quit entirely, more power to you. That's a tough habit to break.
Large.mp4 says, I recently got my septum pierced because of your video, and I love it. Thank you for the great explanation in the videos.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching the videos. I love it when I have an influence on people and I can actually spread the piercings to the rest of the world. That's so great. Congratulations.
All right. Potter says, love your vids. I'm getting my navel pierced on Friday. Hopefully I've got the right anatomy. Any tips?
Yes. If you're going to bring someone, bring a good support team, not someone who's going to freak you out, a good night's sleep, and, you know, a nice big meal before you go in. Having food gives you energy to deal with the piercing, and you're going to be just fine. Now, I also want to bring this up. I don't know how long ago I said this, but we will be doing another live stream later today. It's kind of a behind the scenes. We're doing a What Should I Get Pierced live stream version. It won't be posted back out there. So if you catch it, you see how we actually do this. It'll be kind of fun. So check us out later, probably another 4 hours or so, 4 or 5 hours.
All right.
Somewhere around there.
Jennifer says, do you have any recommendations for half circle open hoops or rings that are 18 gauge compatible with threadless ends? So we're talking about a circular barbell, right?
Yes.
Are there threadless circular barbells?
There are. There's Neo Metal just came out with a couple months ago circular barbells that have forward-facing gems and in the circular barbell, but most companies don't do circular barbells. It's the only company I know. Now, when you say half circle, it's a circular barbell, so it's going to replicate almost a full circle, but there's going to be the gap in the middle. It's not a full half. It's not a full-on half circle itself.
So no one really makes that to your knowledge.
And if you're dealing with curved barbells, like something like a regular curved barbell, generally one bead is fixed and the other one has a threadless end. I haven't had a lot of great luck other than with the Neo Metal pieces where they stay in really well. So
all right, Jennifer, Neo Metal probably has that.
It's your best bet.
But not a lot of companies make such a thing.
It's brand new. It's going to be tough to find.
All right. Jennifer Sam says, hey guys, I'm stretching my lobes and I'm stuck at an 8 gauge. I keep trying to go up, but my ears say no. So I give it more time and try again later. This is the 3rd try and no go. Do you have any tips?
Well, a month and a half to 2 months minimum between each stretch. So it might be too early if you're trying to do this between every week or so. So it's going to go fairly easy. Second thing is to stretch your ears in a shower or after you soak your ears in some warm water for a good 5 to 10 minutes. That helps a ton. One size at a time. Don't be double stretching, just, from, the 8 gauge to the 6 gauge, and make sure it's the right size.
Marvin Glunk says, hello, I got my ears pierced last December, the lobes, and they just won't heal. It's been so long. I really want to keep them. I just don't know what to do. Please help.
Okay. So hopefully you're using the wound wash spray to clean your piercing, where you're spraying once a day on the front and back and wiping off crusties. Second thing I'm going to say is hopefully you have a titanium bar in there. Otherwise, it could be an allergy to a metal. Were they done with a piercing gun? Was it done with a piercing needle? That could be also a factor. So Aftercare, hopefully you're not touching or playing with it. Sometimes if we're going swimming in lakes, rivers, and oceans, these things can cause problems. And just inspect your jewelry. Make sure there's no scratches, burrs, or dings on your jewelry.
That's the whole list, Marvin. It's one of those things.
There's a whole bunch of things that are involved. Go talk to your piercer. That's probably going to be your best bet.
Now, Nisha got a Helix piercing, and it's been 3 months, but we have a bump now, and it isn't healing. Her piercer said it's just an irritation, but how long is this going to take to heal?
Normal Helix piercings sometimes take 6 months to a full year to completely heal, to be problem-free and back to normal. So be patient with it. If your hair's getting caught up in there, if you're sleeping on that side, these are issues. Hopefully you have a stud and not a ring in there, because rings take way longer and are way more problematic.
Ol says, when can I put colored balls on a healing tongue piercing? I've had the piercing about a month.
Whenever you want. Colored ones, I hope we're talking about anodized titanium beads, which means it's the electricity that changes. It's not painted on there, or they're not plastic beads. But if you've had your tongue piercing a month, you should be downsizing, and you can wear those colored beads from the get-go if you wanted to.
And so you're saying you do not recommend plastic beads on the end of tongue piercings?
No. A lot of people think it's better for their teeth and their gums, but most plastic, or a lot of it, is even dental acrylic, which is just as hard as your teeth. You can still do just as much damage.
And it's almost like a false sense of security, so you're not as
plastic's
careful.
Not safe to have in your mouth. It's not medical grade in most cases. So.
All right. Yeah. So, all right. The Jaybird says, hey guys, getting pierced this week and want to take your votes. Nipples or both Daths? And on that note, is the Dath very anatomy dependent? Is it possible to go in and get turned down?
I have turned some people down if they don't have the appropriate anatomy. If you have a ridge, we can pierce it. If it's real flat, it doesn't work out very well. But in my personal opinion, I'm a bigger fan of nipple piercings than I am Dath piercings. Both are cool. If you're getting both symmetrical, you can kind of show these off a little easier than nipples. But I can tell you that I will have my nipple pierced forever.
It's your fave.
It's my fave.
All right. Potter says, hey, Scott, I'm getting a navel piercing on Friday. Hopefully I have the right anatomy. Any tips? Also, can you still go on roller coasters and wear your seatbelt, or is that going to hurt the navel piercing?
I don't think they're going to let you go on a roller coaster without the seatbelt.
Well, yeah.
I'm on a roll today. Okay, so so terrible. I can't imagine that if it's a seatbelt thing that kind of comes down over the top, it shouldn't really rub up against it. As far as tips, good night's sleep, food, a good support team with you, and go to a good quality piercer. But yeah, seatbelts shouldn't be a problem. I really don't know. It depends on the roller coaster.
All right. Yeah. Next up, Bat Dad Singo says, I know you suggest emu oil for piercing problems. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preferred brand or seller? It's hard to source a trusted product.
It really, really is. Yes, I do. And it's Desert Palms Emu Ranch. This stuff right here. I've been using this stuff for well over 20 years. It's my go-to. It's all I use. I love these guys. Love them.
All right. Will Jones, hi, swollen ear here. I took out the old piercing, which was a Helix, a year ago, and I had it redone, but that should only solidify the one spot, right? Let me try again.
Okay.
Swollen ear here. Took out the old piercing, which was a Helix, a year ago, and I had it redone, But that should only solidify the one spot, right?
So that means it's hardening in a larger area.
Maybe scar tissue
It might
or
be
something.
spreading or something. I'm not 100% sure.
But basically, how long would you wait before re-piercing a helix that you had pierced and took out?
I say a minimum of a month, could be several months. Everyone scars differently, and everyone
try to get rid of the scar tissue before you re-pierce.
Correct. But it sounds like they got a pierce, and it's spreading like the hardness. That's the way I'm reading it. So.
It's difficult.
I don't know. Go talk to your piercer. That might be something you need to go check out.
All right. Basil YT says, "Hey Scott, I'm about to get my ears pierced. Lobes. Any last minute advice?"
Just relax and enjoy the experience. There are earlobe piercings. We've been doing it for thousands of years, maybe even millions. I don't even know. But anyways, yeah, it's a great piercing. Have fun. You got us on your side.
All right. Camila Alvarez says, "Hi guys.
Hi.
So I got my conch pierced 4 months ago and it's pretty much healed, but the piercer pierced it kind of deeper into my ear than I would like. Is it worth re-piercing it if it isn't causing trouble?" So conch placement, is this a thing? Like, what are the different spots?
Okay. I didn't pull up my ears today. That's really weird.
Earless.
I'm earless. Okay. The only issue, well, I mean, if you don't like the looks of it, yeah, take it out and redo it. It's a piercing. It's whatever. Going through another healing process sucks, but if you're not happy with it, make it so you're happy. Generally, I like bringing them further out towards the edge because that way, if you want to wear a ring, you still can, unless you pierce at a larger size. Because the deeper you go, the bigger the ring has to be, and most people don't pierce at 14 gauge or 12 gauge or larger. So therefore, you can't even find rings to fit. That's my biggest issue with piercing too far into the ear.
Is that you can't wear a ring. So some piercers will place it there because they're thinking about like centrally placing a big cluster or something.
Correct. But I mean, you also got to look at modern trends, how people want to wear rings a majority of the time, and you just take that option out for them. You know, like if I ask someone, "You plan on wearing a ring in the future?" Like, "Oh, there's no way." I'm still going to put it a little bit more towards the edge because that's where everybody's getting it. Back in the day, like for nostril piercings, everyone got it in the crease. That's where everyone got it. It was in the crease. And nowadays it's much lower because everyone wants to wear a ring and you want that giant ring. But at the same time, now it's normalized that the piercing's a little bit lower on the nose.
So it just slow, like the trend changes.
Trends change. So yeah, if you don't like it, get it re-pierced.
And it seems like that's one of the ones that different piercers do differently is the conch. Some people go more outside and more inside. And
if you're moving it a lot, maybe keep it and do another one. Have a little stud on there and then, double pierce it.
There you go. Turn it into a happy accident.
Yep. Code
Nightmare says, "Hi, Scott. I was thinking about getting my tongue pierced, but I was wondering if chipping teeth, does that happen a lot?"
Absolutely. It's the biggest concern and number one problem for oral piercings, especially tongue piercings, because we're talking to eating. Beads can eventually come loose. And if that bead comes off, no matter how careful you are, you can bite down and chip and damage your teeth. So if it's really a concern, don't do it. I think most people who've had the tongue pierced for years have done some sort of damage one way, shape, or another, whether it's against their gums, enamels eroded, or they full on chipped their teeth. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it for that reason alone.
Dom wants to know how you can become a good and qualified piercer. "I'm currently working on building a portfolio for tattoo art, but I'm also interested in becoming a piercer. So what's the path there?"
It just takes years and years of practice and training. Never stop learning. And that's all I can really suggest about that.
It's so like an apprenticeship, basically. You have to find another qualified piercer.
Just because
you're
licensed as a tattoo artist doesn't mean you can pierce. Just because you're a licensed physician doesn't mean you're a licensed dentist at the same time. They're different trades, healing wounds differently, treating people differently. As far as tattoo takes a long period of time versus a one instant kind of deal. It is different. So make sure you get a proper apprenticeship. You learn how to do it properly and never stop learning. That's the best advice I can ever give.
All right. Mary Ridinger says, "Hi, Scott. How many piercings are safe to get in one sitting?" Now that's going to be different piercer to piercer, but what do you say?
I think my opinion's changing.
Okay.
I used to say like 4 to 5 max healing on someone at once. And I'm getting closer to the 3 range. After I went to APP, I did a survey and I talked to a lot of other piercers. Most piercers say around the 3. And I feel like I was kind of pushing it a little tiny bit. But the way I push it a little bit, it's like like if you had like a Helix, a tragus, a nipple, and I'd be like, okay, slow down. But if you had like 3 lobe piercings on each side, a total of 6 piercings, I still think that's kind of okay. So if they're located all in the same area, it's not as big of a deal. But if they're spread out, probably 3, maybe 4.
All right.
Maybe. Yeah.
And because it would make them all heal slower.
Correct. And this also includes tattoos. If you're healing a giant tattoo that you just got done sitting for 6 hours, or if you had a major operation, you had a broken bone and you're healing things up, these are also factors.
It's going to slow down the piercing in general. Rianne got a tragus piercing 11 days ago and it itches, but it's not red and sore.
Yep.
So that's a good thing. It means we're healing up.
Means you're healing, means the body's working. A lot of times, like 3 to 5 days is when the body gives up on the swelling and it says, okay, it's staying there. And that's when things calm down. So glad you're having a good experience. The itching is normal. Just keep those crusties off and you'll get that healed up in no time.
Another positive story. Tomas says, hi, Scott. Love your channel. I got my nostril pierced 2 months ago and there was never any discharge or crusties. Is that normal? Hoping to stop by on a trip to Las Vegas this year for a septum piercing.
I would love to pierce you. Make sure you set up that appointment. Yeah, sometimes crusties just don't happen. I don't quite understand why. I'm guessing they probably do and we don't notice them. Maybe they just don't form as strong and showers and baths take them off. Maybe sweat takes them off. I don't really know, but generally crusties happen to a certain degree, but I have seen them. It seems like where they never have formed.
Just means you're healing well. It's not a bad. Some people almost get worried like things are going too well.
Yeah, exactly. So cool.
Pupper says, hello, Scott. I've been your fan for a while. What's a good place to get my second piercing that isn't very painful?
At my shop.
Aha.
Oh.
It's because he uses good needles.
Yeah.
It's just a good, it's a very general question. So what's a good, not very painful second piercing? So for a beginner, doesn't hurt too bad. What do we say?
I love septum piercings. Eyebrows are fairly easy. A conch piercing is a really great piercing. It's a little longer healing process, but you can sleep on it fairly soon. Navels are great as long as your pants are rubbing up against it.
Or not rubbing up against it.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of fun things. Most important thing is get what you want. Don't let fear be a factor.
All right. So listen to that list and see what excites you there, Pupper. Becky C. just wanted to drop in and say hello. I hope you're both doing well.
Well, thank you. Hello to you as well, and I hope you're doing just as good.
And Becky loves hearing about piercing history and says you should do more videos like that. Take care.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you guys caught this, but the last video I put out, not the last one, but the one before that, was an interview with Elaine Angel, who's one of the pioneers of this industry. And she wrote the Piercing Bible. It's a great interview. If you haven't checked it out, I'm really proud of it. Go check it out. And I do have more coming up. I interviewed a guy named Steve Truitt about body mods, and hopefully that stuff will be coming out possibly this week.
Pretty soon. Yeah. In the next week or two, we're going to be seeing some that new content.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Dunja Berg says, hi, Scott. Greetings from Germany. I want to get a tongue web, but I want to know how much it will swell.
It's going to sound weird, but it's going to get twice the size. But then again, it's only paper thin, so
that's not that big.
No. Yeah, it's like twice, maybe 3 times the size. It'll get fat, but it's not going to affect your speech. It's not going to affect your eating, other than if you're eating spicy foods and it's an open wound, that would affect it. But
so it's not even swollen enough to really like bump your tongue up or mess with you at all.
No.
Okay.
No worries about the swelling.
Not much at all, Dunja. Hopefully you enjoy your tongue web piercing.
It's an easy one. It's a fun one. It's just keeping your mouth open is the tough part. Yeah.
Ray Toss says, hey, Scott, I've been wanting to split my tongue, but can't find a place to do it. Do you know a place that does it? Now, is that the kind of thing where you just show up to a business and get that done?
No, most places this stuff is illegal and it's kind of done under the table. So you kind of need to go on forums online, see if there's anyone in town who advertises this. Some people do
contact people directly, like look and see who's done really good jobs of this. Who are the big names that you see over and over again, and maybe just email that individual or Instagram message that person.
Correct. Like Steve Truitt, the guy I interviewed, we're going to be talking about tongue splitting. So that might be one of the videos coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eye out for that.
Yeah.
There are people, but most of those body modification artists travel. They don't necessarily have a stationary. They go to big shop and travel. So there's not a lot of them.
Right. So,
I don't know make it in one city unless that city's big enough.
So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that sub button, because we will be putting out that video probably in the next week or two with specifically a whole truth about tongue splitting, all the details on it.
Yep.
And it's a good chance to learn about these kinds of things.
It's pretty interesting.
Connor Clark says, hey guys.
Hi.
Taylor B has a vertical industrial. What are some tips for healing it?
Wound wash spray, try not to sleep on it, and keep the crusties off. If it ever stings or hurts, clean your piercing so those crusties stay off. It's going to take a long time, but that's just the price we pay for beauty sometimes.
We have another one of these things are going too well and it freaks me out stories. No Name had a nostril piercing 5 days ago and it barely bled, and so far there's literally been no pain, no blood, no crusties. We're worried. It's too awesome.
Yeah, I'd freak out if I were you.
No, everything's okay though, huh?
Everything's great. That's exactly what we want to happen. Our bodies are amazing organs that just heal things up. You know, it's like I think we cause more problems than the actual piercings do sometimes.
Messing with it and making it worse.
Yep. So congratulations.
How long should you wait after piercing earlobes to have them stretched?
A minimum of 2 months, sometimes closer to the 3-month range.
Dash also says, thanks for doing these lives. You've helped me a lot. Love from Finland.
My pleasure. Thanks for tuning in and being part of our community.
Now, Agnes is thinking about getting absolutely stacked with piercings. We're talking like 20 plus. What's the best strategy to get them all if we're starting from one? So if you could plan this from scratch, like what's a good way to get a ton of piercings?
Okay. So this is a really good question. Plan ahead. Some piercings are tougher to heal. Some are easier to heal. Sometimes you're going to be getting an ear piercing and you're not sleeping on that ear for a year. So maybe heal up that ear 1 ear at a time. So work on this side. And then once, you know, you can sleep on it, then you move to the other side, you know, and if some things heal up, like most of these are healed up, but one is it's a little tender. Then if you want an eyebrow, that might be a good time to do the eyebrow because that's a fast. So plan things out so you can sleep and heal accordingly. That's the best advice I can give. Keep in mind, like 3-4 piercings healing most at one time. Multivitamins help speed up the healing process. It's a long journey you're ahead of, you're about to get into, and it's going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of fun jewelry, other piercing ideas, and other looks. So cool.
Amber Maddox says, thanks so much for your videos. I always look forward to seeing them.
Well, thank you.
Ingrid Taylor has had a belly button piercing for a while now, and it's always going to the side. Is that normal? So like the way the jewelry sits.
Okay. If you're wearing a ring, this is 100% normal. Maybe if you healed it up with the ring, a lot of times it heals that tube of scar tissue to go from the side to side instead of forward. If your jewelry's way too long, sometimes the weight of the beads are going to cause it to go one side. So I would say maybe different jewelry. Maybe less of a curve on the curved barbell, maybe something shorter or longer, depending on what you need. I would have to really see it to know, but this does happen from time to time.
And we have a question about multiple piercings in one session. You do how many would you say in one session?
Like 4 or 5 would be the most I would do in one session.
And recommended less if possible.
Yeah, generally closer to the 3 is the better idea.
All right. I know I asked on the last live, but I figured I'd ask again. Where are we at with the jewelry thing? Even closer. We're not quite ready yet, but we're getting closer every week.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a time frame, but I'm afraid to say any sort of
right. But sooner than later. We're working hard on it. It's what we spend our time on when we're not here with you guys.
The reason it's taken so long is because I'm about the only piercer in the shop. I have Jose, who was my apprentice and now is a piercer and is starting to kind of get into it. But I pierce 5 days a week, run the business, and then also trying to produce all these. It takes up a lot of time. I love what I do and I wouldn't change it, but it is coming. It's just be patient. We'll get there.
All right. Ruby Webb says, I'd love to hear about your nose stretching. Any tips? I've stretched from an 8 to an 8 from about a 16.
Wow. It's a lot more painful than you would ever imagine for those of you who have not done it. It's pretty brutal. Back in the day, I had a friend who worked at a machine shop who was making me in between sizes. So I didn't necessarily go from the 4 straight to the 2. I went from like a 4 to maybe a 3.5 to the 3 to the 2.5, then to the 2. So there was multiple sizes to to do this. It was extremely painful, and it stayed painful for probably weeks at a time every stretch. It's the reason you don't see it. And props to you for getting up to that size.
All right. Timothy asking a similar question. Is there a good place to buy jewelry online? In fact, there isn't. And that's why we are trying to put together a place for you to get it, or you can rely on that. Because just everywhere, you have to be careful. You can end up with something bad for you in you.
What are you guys looking for, by the way? What do you want? Do you want just tops? Do you want basics? Do you want plugs? What exactly would you want us to start carrying in our jewelry store? Let us know in the comments.
That's a great question.
Yes.
Can you bite out your lip piercing?
Well, I'm trying to
figure out the question. Or just, is it common to bite a lip piercing in general? Is that a concern?
Yes. If your post is too long or the ring is too big, you can bite down and chomp on there and do damage to your teeth. As far as like bite it out, like ripping your piercing out, I can't imagine you could. The only possibility is if you had an inverse vertical labret. So instead of it being on the outside, it was on the inside, and you somehow were able to bite that tissue because it's so soft. That would be it. But you bite the post, but not bite it out.
Not usually bite it out. Connor says, hey, Scott, just wondering if there's been anyone that's come in for a piercing that you've refused to do. Probably lots, right? It's based on anatomy.
Based on anatomy, alcohol or drugs.
So if you come in drunk, you're out.
And I also turn people down for a lot of reasons you'd be surprised. People come in and say, hey, I'm going to Mexico next week. We're going on spring break or going on vacation. I need my navel pierced so it looks good for the beach. And it's like, well, you can't go swimming. What if you have problems, irritation? Who's going to fix it for you? Do you want to worry about cleaning it? It's going to be like a big fresh bruise that whole time. So I'll say, hey, I know you want it to look cute, but you want to have a good time. It's better to get it done after you get back. So plan ahead, make sure things are healed up for that reason. Also, people are getting an operation or something like that coming up in the future, in the near future, in the next several months. Wait till after that operation because you're going to have to take that piercing out. It's going to close up and you have to get it re-pierced anyways. So, yeah, it does happen.
Dreams Remorse says, I'm curious, Scott. I've heard that any piercing can reject, but have you ever seen a rejected or rejecting conch? It seems like it'd be very hard for it to reject just because of the nature of where it's at.
I think a lot of people get the term rejection confused with migration. I have never seen a conch fully reject out. Maybe if it got caught on like a car and ripped out, that would be the only possibility. But you're right, it couldn't reject. It's going to migrate, change angles. It might shift up or down,
So they move around a little sometimes.
It can move around, but as far as full-on rejection, I've never seen it, and I can't imagine it. And getting ripped out is different than rejection, too. So I agree with you. Not everything can reject. They can migrate sometimes. A lot of piercings can reject. Eyebrows will come all the way out. Vertical lips can reject out. A nostril I've never seen reject down.
Same thing.
Same thing, septum. I've never seen it reject all the way out unless it's pierced at the bottom skin. So
just way too low.
Yeah.
Antra wants to know, is sterile saline marketed for nasal cleaning the same as the sterile saline wound wash?
No. Well, sterile saline for nasal.
Yeah, maybe like for spraying up your nose.
I would have to research that one. I'm not 100% sure, but most nasal sprays have other enzymes and chemicals to help stop something. It's not just pure saline. There's other chemicals, which is what we need to stay away from. So I would stick to pure wound wash. And otherwise, they would suggest just using the wound wash for the nose if that was the case.
Right. Well, it just seems like if it says it's only water, though, then...
If it's pure, saline, then it's fine. But if there's other things in there,
don't use it.
Sodium chloride and basically water is all you really need in there. So,
all right. Ashlyn says, hey, Scott, my mom wants to get a triple lobe piercing, but she's worried that she won't be able to wear her chunky jewelry because it'll look too crowded. Can you still wear big gems with a triple lobe piercing, or do you think it does?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. In a situation like this, your best thing to do is put in the chunkiest, biggest earrings you want to wear and go into the piercing shop and talk to the piercer and say, hey, these are the biggest ones I wear. Can I add 2 more and still look okay? And they will tell you straight up. If they're a good piercer, they'll say, yeah.
Or no.
Or no. If that's what I'm saying. If they're a good piercer, they'll tell you. If they're a bad piercer, like, oh yeah, I could fit it in there, but I mean, it's going to look right. So, or Photoshop it. Take a picture of your ear and from the side with a big jewelry, and you have the room. You can look and see.
Kind of check it out.
Yeah.
Christian says hello from Romania.
Romania, hello.
Excellent. Linnell Brooks says, I have a tongue piercing. I took it out, and now I have a bump inside my tongue. Should I be worried?
Absolutely not. Well, I don't know exactly what that bump is, but most likely it's a fistula. Every piercing we get, like even an earlobe piercing, how you feel that little bump on the inside? That's that tubus scar tissue. That's what prevents germs and bacteria from getting to the body to create infections. So you did heal that tubus scar tissue. A lot of times it just shrinks up, but you still will feel a little something in there.
Gabriel wants to know if Bioflex barbells can be used on a nipple piercing.
I hate Bioflex. I'm just going to say it. I'm not a fan of it. It's plastic. It generally, it's not as flexible as it should be. It's not as smooth as it should be. And I don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. So
this you haven't not had great experiences?
No, I haven't. No.
W. Moore is getting a vasectomy soon and wants to get a PA since you'll be out of commission sexually for a few weeks anyway. Do you think that makes sense? Is that okay to do simultaneously, or would you wait?
Talk to your doctor. You should be fine for it. I think the vasectomy, isn't that kind of going from the backside of the sternum?
It should be a fairly easy heal. It's usually it's a small snip done through a little hole.
You don't even know. So you should be fine. And that small wound, which a vasectomy, I know it seems bigger than it actually, but that should heal really quick and there shouldn't be any problems because you're healing the wound closed. So I would say you should be fine, but talk to the doctor first.
All right. LR says, hey, Scott, have you ever had to retire a piercing that you really loved or not been able to have a piercing that you really wanted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have been pierced over 400 times. I've loved a lot of my piercings. Some of my favorite ones I've had were Lobrettes, which were kind of vertical and they came out down the bottom of my chin. Now with my beard, you can't see it anymore, but I used to have little spikes coming out of there. But every morning I woke up, the beads on the inside were sinking into the gums and I had to pop them out. And after a couple months of that, I was like, it's not worth it. I've also had a mandible piercing, which if you see my extreme piercings, you know how dangerous and a bad idea that is. I would have loved to have been able to heal it up, but I didn't have a chance. Other piercings I've wanted and not been able to get. I've always wanted my mantis piercings. I just got to find the piercer to do them.
All right.
Yeah.
So some good stuff there. If I do snake bites, how long do I have to wait to drink beer? I might do it in a month. My birthday's in August, and I'd like to drink beers, lol.
Generally, I tell people when you get an oral piercing not to get drunk for the first week and a half. A lot of times it numbs the mouth, and I've seen people play with their lip piercings, which rips and tears that new forming scar tissue. Once you've had it for a good solid month, you're going to be able to downsize, and you're fairly healed and established where you should be able to drink beer and not have any problems. Just don't play with it if you're drunk.
Cannibal Fish Fruit says, for piercings with a long healing time, how long until it's safe to swim? I see a lot of different advice, and is there still a risk of infection even after healing?
Yes. Most piercings, I tell people a minimum of 1 month. It may take longer to heal on certain piercings, but generally that fistula, that tubus scar tissue is almost strong enough to prevent germs and bacteria from getting in there. Now, if your piercing has recently bled or you have extra crusties or it got opened up, that would be more prone to a problem. So minimum of a month, sometimes a couple months. Now, if the piercings like nipple piercings, navel piercings, they can be covered with Tegaderm patches, which is waterproof Band-Aids, but ears are tough to kind of wrap saran wrap type of bandages around. You just got to keep your head above water if that's the case.
All right. We are starting to run out of time, so we're just going to hit a few more questions before we're done. We have a clarification earlier. We talked to Will about piercing and upper cartilage and piercing through it, and we weren't exactly sure. Clarification is that we pierced through a lump of scar tissue.
Yep.
And now the question is can we use Mederma and leave the bar in to kind of tame that scar tissue while retaining the piercing?
No, because Mederma is going to eat the tubus scar tissue that you're trying to heal. If you put that on there, it's going to bring you back to kind of like day one. If you got all that scar tissue to dissipate, it's an open wound.
Okay.
So Mederma does not work on healing piercings or healed piercings. I don't ever suggest Mederma on earlobes for stretched ears. Like, oh, I have all this extra scar tissue. No, it leaves it raw and it breaks it. It's not reduce.
That's not what you want. It's when you're getting rid of stuff.
Exactly. If you're taking your piercings out and you want them to close, that's when you use it.
All right. So if
But massaging it will.
okay,
You know, if you have scar tissue around it, you can kind of massage and try to break that tissue down by getting the blood flow.
so Will can leave the bar in and just do some fingertip massage.
Yes,
and might be able to fix the problem that way.
That's about the only way you can really do it.
All right, cool. Louise Lott says, do you recommend using a Q-tip to clean your piercings?
I don't. Most of the time, the cotton fibers from the Q-tip will leave a residue. Excuse me. And that turns into a bacteria trap. If you have prong settings holding on to those gems, cotton's just going to get stuck in there and you spend all your time trying to get it out. A paper towel or sterile gauze is hands down the best thing to use.
All right. Clandestine Girl says, love you, Scott.
Love you too.
Ben Monday also says hi and wants to know what your thoughts are on a Monroe piercing.
They're a little bit out of style now. They used to be way more popular. I had a couple done myself. I think they're really, really fun piercings. It's one of the few piercings that I do where placement is so key. Like I like putting multiple dots on people because just the slightest movement can completely change someone's look, whether it's on one side, both, or however you kind of going about it. I think they're cool piercings as long as it doesn't rub up against the eye tooth and cause gum erosion.
So you're saying with that one in particular, placement's important. There's a lot of places it could go. You want to make sure it's where you like it.
It's a large area. And it's like, whether it's higher up above, like my mustache, into the mustache, out by the smile line, all the way in, like a real close to a Medusa. I mean, all of it's possible.
And so take your, as the person getting the piercing, take your time, make sure it's what you want.
Yeah. Before you go in, play around with some marker at home and mark your face and figure out where the general idea you want it to be is.
Sweet Georgia Peach says, hey, Scott, I hope all is well and that you're
Hello.
both enjoying today. We are. Question. I want to get my nips pierced, but I feel like they may be too small. Is that a concern?
No, you're probably totally fine. There's a lot of guys who have very, very tiny nipples, and those are still pierceable. The only non-pierceable people I've ever met are people who have very inverted nipples where the nipple goes inside and it won't protrude or come outside of the breast. So if your nipple doesn't stick out at all, then I can't get to actually pierce. I'm saying where it goes concave and goes inside. And the other time is like when people work out so much that the skin is so tight that I can't even lift the nipple off of the actual chest.
Okay, so if the skin's too tight.
Yeah, pretty rare. You're probably fine to get pierced.
Just a couple more. Paprika says, hey, Scott, I got my septum pierced a month ago and got gifted some 16 gauge jewelry as well as some 18 gauge jewelry. Can I switch back and forth or do we have to just stick with one size? We're currently in the 16.
If you've had it for a while, you can probably go back and forth a little bit. If you wear the 18 for a long time, getting the 16 might be a little bit of a stretch, but the septum stretches naturally so easily on its own. And if it was a tight stretch, just do it in the shower. The hot water should loosen up and make it fall right into place.
All right. And for one last one here,
Yes.
and again, we apologize to everyone whose question we did not get to today. We hopefully will get to you next week. And we thank you for coming in and spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And I love all the comments. And before we go on to the last question, too, I also want to say I'm doing another live stream in probably like 4 hours or something like that. It's going to be a What Should I Get Pierced? It won't be rebroadcast, but it will be broken up into multiple What Should I Get Pierced series. So if you want to see me do this live, check me in and check me out in a couple hours here. So, yeah.
All right. And so our final question will be from Roto Retro Escroto. And the question is, I've never done a bridge piercing, and I'm thinking about doing it to myself. Is this such a bad idea?
It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Number one, you probably don't have the equipment to sterilize things properly. Number two is if you go too deep, you don't have the proper anatomy, you can get bone erosion on your skull. That being said, it's a terrible idea. You have to have the right anatomy. It has to be the right placement. And honestly, of all the piercings I do, that one's one of the most difficult to get straight. Even though it's right there, like every little minute little thing makes a huge difference.
It makes sense.
Go get it done.
People are making eye contact with you. They're going to notice the tiniest fraction of a millimeter of crookedness.
And when they're crooked, they're crooked.
Right. And so that's the biggest thing is even if you think I do have the sterile equipment, I bought all the stuff I need, you're just going to feel crooked.
Risk of disease and risk of bone erosion on your skull. And
don't do it, Roto Retro Escroto.
Come to Vegas. Let me do it for you. All right. Well, that winds everything up today. Appreciate everyone here. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. We'll see you all in the next video.